everyone, for tuning into another edition of Taking Stock Live. I hope you're having as much fun listening to these as I am having doing these. Today we have a very special guest to me, someone who I worked with in a prior life, somebody who I've admired my entire career as a real thought leader, as a real innovator in retail, and also just as a friend and a mom who has helped me at times navigate balancing work and family and all the things that fit in between. So welcome, Dawn. Dawn Dobras is the CEO of Credo Beauty. We are thrilled to have you today. And first, just in opening up, I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you're doing as a CEO of Credo Beauty.
Sure. Thanks, Shelley, for having me on. It is such a pleasure to be able to talk to people that you know and love and have known and loved for such a long time. So it's a real treat for me as well. I'm currently the CEO of Credo Beauty. And what I have learned is that if you are between the ages of 18 and 34, you immediately start screaming, "Oh my God, that's the coolest thing." And if you're a little bit older, you'd be like, clean beauty, I don't know so much about it. So Credo Beauty is the largest clean beauty retailer in the US. We have 10 stores across the country, a thriving digital business, and we are very much like the Whole Foods of beauty or the Green Sephora, in that we have 130 brands in our store. 90% of them, I might add, are founded and run by women. So clean beauty is very much a movement by women for women. And that doesn't mean that our arms aren't open to everyone, but just very different than maybe conventional beauty. And we offer an alternative of a more ethical, more sustainable, more transparent way of looking at your personal care and beauty products. And everything from toothpaste to glittery eyeshadow to lipstick to anti-aging creams and retinols. We have over 2,700 SKUs in our store, and it's a virtual candy land for people that are interested in a different type of beauty and a clean approach to beauty.
It's great. I've had some of your products. I love your stores, and I have to tell you, you do feel like it's more than just buying a product. You feel like you just feel good about yourself, and the discovery process is so fun.
Well, that's what's really fun for us too, right? We have all these brands of these. I mean, I tell you, we have 130 brands. And while we are a growing, small to getting bigger company, we host this ecosystem of amazing rock star, many of them women, who are kind of bucking the trends of what conventional beauty does. And so they're looking at more sustainable ways, more ethical ways, and less toxic ways of formulating products. And so when you walk in, discovery is a great word we use a lot, because there is a lot of cool stuff that you're going to say, wow, maybe I could switch out, or look at this packaging, it's sustainable. I want to read more about this story. And being that ecosystem for entrepreneurship is actually one of the most rewarding parts of working at Credo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly outside of your 18 to 34, but I will say that, I have them in my drawer because you got me on them. But I used to think that sometimes there would be a compromise,
right?
But there isn't. I mean, first of all, the packaging is amazing, and they just I feel better about myself having them out. But also the quality of the product is fabulous.
And that's what's been really exciting about the clean beauty space. And clean beauty really burst on the scene in many ways in skincare, where skincare outpaced a lot of the products that we see actually in our store right now on efficacy, right? Because it's the same thing in food too. If you're switching out of dairy products because you're going vegan, you don't want to actually drink really runny milk. And that's why oat milk, which is so creamy and so wonderful, has burst on the scene, right? It is an alternative to dairy, but it's also really good. And so that's what you're seeing in the clean beauty space, that it really pushed on all the innovation, the same levels of efficacy in skincare first. And then different than the trend of the market, if you look at beauty in general, makeup has been on a downtrend, but not in clean beauty, because the innovation and the pigment payoffs and frankly, the products have just exploded on the scene in the last 2 years. And so you have brands like Kosas and St. Jane's and Kira Weiss and Ilia and Gucci Westman's new brand. I mean, just so many cool brands that are just I'd say better than what's out there in the conventional space, because the payoff's there and they're doing it with more sustainable, less toxic ingredients. So it's just like better than what you had.
It's amazing. So talk a little, you sort of said like the whole foods for clean beauty. As you think about what Credo stands for, what are some of those brand principles?
Yeah, and this is probably the coolest thing about my job, is that when we look at Credo, we are a very, very fast growing company with a lot of opportunity. When you look at conventional beauty and where clean beauty in that space grows, like the growth rates of adoption are going crazy. And that's great. It's a super fun thing. So the idea that you can be in a financially growing, strong business is very exciting. I think ultimately Credo's greatest impact will be on the social side, that we are leading the way in a leadership role, even though we're much smaller than Sephora, Ulta, some of these big retailers out on the scene, in things like RSL, restricted substance list, what you shouldn't put in your ingredients. When you think about sustainable packaging, we are moving to eliminating single use in our stores. That may sound like, oh, kind of passive. Like when you think about removing the plastic straw from Starbucks, think about sheet masks. Think about all the single use that you incorporate in the beauty industry. And so as of June 1st, we're eliminating single use from our stores, right? Wow. So when we think about the impact, I am quite sure that our social impact on the industry, on our customers, on how people perceive their products will be much greater on the social side, perhaps than even on the financial side. And it is such a rare jewel of a company that gets to have financial success as well as social success on both sides. And, we look, of course, at Whole Foods, we look at Patagonia, we look at a lot of these social impact businesses that are not nonprofits, but are really here to change the way people think about things. And so, at the baseline, we try and change the way you think about what you put on your body. But very much it expands into everything that can be done better. So it's about what you don't want in your products. It's about what the end use looks like. It's about the ingredients and their sustainability. For instance, palm oil is quite a natural substance, but it's really bad for the earth. We don't allow palm oil in there. So it's not just natural. Then there's diversity, like who comes in your store, who you sell to, how accessible it is. There's the idea of, if you're going through all of ESG, when you think about gender and women and leadership and shifting the balance there, I'm proud to report our board of directors is primarily dominantly women, over 70% female run. So it's not just one female on the board, but it's majority female. So there's all these things that we get to bring to the market and be a role model for. So it's really such a fun place to work.
Something like we're ready, I'm in.
Yeah.
And I think the thing, like you said, is, it's really, it's so core to what consumers care about now. And they're not two separate things: financial performance and sustainable performance. It's just
I'm spending less now, right? Like I'm spending less right now, and I know that is a temporary thing due to this crazy 2020 and extension world that we live in today. But I care about, and I vote with my dollars. I vote with my investments. I vote, period. And then I vote with my dollars and I vote with my investments, right? I care what's going to happen. And we're not all going to win the Nobel Peace Prize but we can make a difference in our choices. And I think consumers are very much waking up to that. And when I look at younger generations, my kids included, it matters a lot more. And so it's great to be in a company that can authentically do that. And I only hope that more people start to incorporate ESG goals into the way that they run their companies.
I think we're getting there, because I
Yeah.
think, the stat that I've seen that inspired me is 67% of consumers are saying their sustainable practices of companies are going to be how they make decisions. And we do have more time to research right now.
Yes.
I'm paying attention to the content of what I'm buying in a way that, frankly, I was in too much of a hurry.
I have a funny story about that. When the pandemic hit, and maybe just because we're in this digital world, when the pandemic hit, it used to be that we would send out our emails for our digital site, and like the heat map would only be at the top. And then the pandemic hit, and we just kept adding content. And like now it's like literally like a mile long, and the heat map, people read all the way to the bottom. So to your point, you actually have time to read and look and engage in a way that you hadn't. But we always laugh. We're like, wow, we added 3 more sections. They just keep going.
They need more. Like, I know.
More. I'm like, throw another blog in there.
I want more content.
Yeah, throw another blog in. Yeah, because they're reading it.
Well, yeah.
It's great. It's great. We have the time to process.
Everybody had kind of gone to, you have to be mobile first, which obviously you have to be, but the amount of content that's getting digested on desktops now that we're all kind of sitting here, it's super interesting. What's changing?
Yeah.
Talk about you talked about your kids. Talk about Gen Z and sort of future consumers and what they're asking you for and looking to you for.
Yeah, we have really, really interesting customers. So when we think about this movement in clean, obviously it started in food, and that's a great analogy. And you have the people that are like, I'm committed vegan, or I'm very, very knowledgeable about my ingredient base. And so that's where the clean beauty movement started. And what we're seeing, much like in food, is it's going more mainstream, right? My dad buys organic milk now. Like, right. He certainly didn't 10 years ago, right? It is moving more mainstream. And we see that again happening in beauty. Now, that is pushed down through the younger ones, right? They are making a lot of decisions, and they're just starting there. They're like, why would I even start with something that's not sustainable? Why would I even start with something that isn't better for me? Some work that we have to do on our end, and I would say this holds true with the organic food industry, is that organic or more sustainable products tend to be a little bit more expensive. And so if you are 22 and you're just coming out of college, it is a rub. So this idea of being more friendly at lower price points is something that we need to work on, so that we can bring the masses along with us on the journey, especially at the younger levels. But in beauty, many times you lock in for life. A lot of your moisturizer, your mascara, some of these things are choices that you started very early in your development, and you stay with it. I love this blah, blah, blah mascara. And it takes a lot of changing power. So yeah, we're very interested in aligning with these young customers as they come in, and they ask us so many questions, like who's the founder? Where did it come from? Where, we have a recycling program where you get loyalty points when you bring your empties back in, and people are dumping everything on the counter and wanting to talk about it. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the people who you work with and are also part of that generation too. So going to your store or being on your website feels like you're part of a community.
Very, very much so. And we're talking about a younger demographic, but there are many trigger points where health concerns. COVID was a big one for the world. But as you get pregnant for the first time, if you have breast cancer or someone you know has cancer, many times your toxic load, you're encouraged to evaluate that. And so many times that's a discovery channel for women of all ages and, humans of all ages to engage in more in-depth research and ingredients, whether it be food, wellness, or in personal care.
Yeah. So speaking of sort of what the pandemic has taught.
The year that we shall not name. Yes.
I mean, you're like, as I said at the top, like you're actually opening stores in the context. I mean,
we are. It was
what you've learned, though no one would have planned for it.
Yeah. So we rolled into 2020 with a ton of momentum and actually a pretty aggressive store rollout plan last year. And obviously on May 13th, we closed all of our stores. And as a leader and as a human, the biggest worry there was people's jobs and employment.
Right.
And I think back, actually, I'll try not to get teary-eyed because it was hard, and it was the weight of preserving people's employment was very heavy. We actually flipped into a digital solution that helped us retain everyone's jobs. So when we closed our stores, we had a live chat feature on our site, and we immediately put all of our store employees deployed on the website. And what that had the most amazing experience doing is, as all of our site traffic switched digitally, and we had just an influx of new customers, you got the best help in the whole planet, because we hire trained makeup artists, trained estheticians. And so you would chat and they'd be like, well, let me tell you about your derm. You know what I mean? They would just go through and like the most experienced communication. So we worked with a startup out of the UK called Hero. Yeah, Hero. And we had them in place, but that was such a huge unlock as a leader. Number one, it allowed us to engage with our customers in a way that was so positive, but it also allowed us to preserve hours at the store level, so we didn't have to furlough people until we could reopen stores. And there's not that many times in business when leading with your heart actually became a really good business decision. This was one of the times where we felt so it was so important to preserve the knowledge of clean beauty and the passion of our sales associates within our company, that we worked really hard to find ways that we could utilize them. And ultimately that paid off in dividends for our company and also for employment for a lot of people. That was a transformative experience, I think, for an entire company, that we bonded together. We switched 100% digital overnight. And then we actually saw our sales grow because of some of those business decisions that we made. And ultimately, even though it was a huge detour, things like health and wellness and what you use on your body and how you think about health and wellness became the forefront of everybody's mindset. And we were certainly beneficiaries of that engagement and that idea that there are better ways to do things. When we think of 2020, COVID almost feels like a backdrop, because as we stabilized and reopened our stores, we, of course, rolled into the moral reckoning of George Floyd's murder. And when you run a social impact company and you work with young employees, that ground our sales to a stop. Because guess what? When you have social impact employees and consumers, they cannot engage in sales driving activities when the entire country is facing a moral reckoning. So it was like another time where it was really hard as a leader. Ultimately, it was probably the most positive experience what came out of that for us as a company. We wanted to do something big. We weren't Microsoft. We didn't have big foundations where we could do donations, but we launched Credo for Change, which was a BIPOC mentorship program. And I remember I was on the phone and we were like, all right, we're going to throw this out on Instagram and see if anybody applies. And we had mapped out a 6-month mentorship program explicitly to get more BIPOC clean beauty brands into large retailers. Wow. So we put it up on Instagram and we were like, I don't know, maybe nobody will apply. And we had 140 brand founders apply almost overnight. And wow. We were like, it was like college. We were like reading applications and it was so amazing. And we ultimately picked 13 for our first cohort. And we launched that program in August and we just actually finished up in December. I have to tell you, as a company, as a human, as a leader, the most powerful experience that I went through this year, because not only were we working with badass founders, our whole company was involved, right? We would come on these Zooms. We ran educational seminars every 2 weeks. And I would look on the Zoom and it'd be like, oh gosh, there's Ben from IT, or there's somebody from accounting. Like our whole company got involved and tried to put all of our efforts into opening a pipeline into a more diverse founder area. Look, women get less funding than men. Black women get less funding than white women, right? And so we were really working to connect as much as we could with an underserved community. In this case, it was diverse women of color, founders that I'm really proud to announce that one of them is already rolled into Nordstrom. Another one just signed a contract with Walmart. And the goal was like, let's get you ready for retail. It wasn't just like, let's serve it in at Credo, but like, let's get you badass people going. And in many cases, it was the connection in the cohort and the community that was created through that I think was the best tonic for everyone's soul in 2020. Wow. It didn't end there. The California fires, we closed again, right? The political riots, we closed again. Like, this has been the year where it's like, board up the stores, unboard the stores, board up the stores, unboard the stores. So it has been hard. But, you know, we just took a moment. Our fiscal year started on Sunday, and we took a moment at our staff meeting on Monday, and we just took a deep breath, and we were like, we're on the other side. Thank God.
Dawn, you just gave me the chills. Because in each one of those examples, whether it was, you know, kind of redeploying your store associates to serve e-commerce or what you did in this sort of incubation program, you led with your heart and used your business sense to come behind of like what was right to do. And, you know, I think like that's what the world needs right now, is to take these really hard pieces, but be authentic to who we are. And I know you're reading the same stats I am about the number of women who are dropping out of the workforce. We're back to 1980s. And so like just hearing those stories gets me energized again, you know, because we got to do it.
I have to do a huge shout out. Annie Jackson, who's the co-founder of Credo and our COO, and James, our CFO. I have spent more hours online with those two. And Annie's passion and clear vision for Credo and who we could be really helped us have a North Star through all of this. So it was very much leading with our hearts and kind of and just like hoping it all worked out. This year it did. We're really, really looking forward to 2021 being more normal. We're really looking forward to a more normal year. Okay. We're really, really hopeful.
I'm like, me too, just to go out and do something.
And just the uncertainty, you know, when you think about frontline workers, obviously we think about healthcare, but I spend so much time thinking about the retail workers in all levels across our country, whether they be grocery, whether it's Walmart, whether it's our own store employees. They really, every single day, have shown up under incredibly trying and stressful periods and kept the economy going. And I'm so looking forward to letting them be who they used to be, which was your guide in clean beauty, as opposed to health scares and COVID tests and all of that other stuff that has been lumped on every retail worker's roles this year.
Yeah. And I will say that, to your point, one of the things that has been really heartening for me to see as I talk to some of those, you know, bigger companies like Walmart and Walgreens of the world, like you, every single one of those CEOs that I spoke to, their first instinct was, how do I protect my people? You know, how do I make my store where they can go and do their job and it's safe? And so, you know,
so, I mean, we're really looking forward to, like, I want normal, but I also, just for the retail industry and mostly the frontline workers of the retail sales associates, is to have a safer job experience over the next year. So, you know, I've got my vaccine rollout tracker and I'm just like, go.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
What, any big surprises for you in all this?
Yeah, actually, every single day felt like a surprise.
Fair.
You know, I highlighted the Credo for Change program, and what I would say is we did that as an authentic reaction to trying to make things better. And what I didn't anticipate was how important that was actually for our team, because, you know, we all switched to working remotely, and it's very isolating. And mental health is something that I never talk about in a staff meeting, and I talk about it all the time. And we all did the Zoom happy hours, and we did the, you know, we've all tried. But I realized that going through that Credo for Change program gave all of us a focal point of something more positive. And I think I don't think I fully appreciated that when we were just reacting very quickly, how meaningful and important that was going to be for our own employees. So we're getting ready for the second cohort, and we're going to open up applications again in May, and everyone's really excited. And I will tell you, it was a lot of work. Like, I was actually super relieved when it was over, because it was like a good chunk of my days. But we can't wait to get it started again. So when I think about a surprise, it was the ability to turn a really negative thing into something positive, not just for the community, but for our own employees, and help them focus on something that wasn't the kind of crappy year we were all going through.
Yeah. Like, give them a great place to channel that energy. That's amazing.
Or just 2 hours a week where you were talking about something positive.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. So you talked about, kind of the turn of your fiscal year and starting sort of fresh and new. What's next? More stores, different kinds of experiences.
So joking, not joking, we're ready for world domination.
Okay.
Yeah, but look, I don't see any reason that everyone shouldn't have a choice for better beauty products and better personal care. And whether that's PG&E or PG, whether that is Unilever, whether that is anything at the bigger level, we as corporate citizens and as consumers need to start shifting away from plastic into some more sustainable packaging, into more sustainable ingredients, into less toxic ingredients across the world. And so while Credo certainly won't do that on their own, I think that we need to continue to lead. So we're quite ambitious. We are in this to be big, and not just to be big because of our own desire to drive this business, but because we believe in access and entrepreneurship and innovation and all the things that we can bring to the marketplace, and that those should be bigger than they are today. So we believe that we have a mission to help change the industry. And by that implication, we look to see where our biggest impact is. So this year, one of the things we did is we partnered with Ulta. And so we rolled out into some of their stores, which is the customer facing piece of it. But we also work with them behind the scenes. Annie, the co-founder of Credo, is on their Conscious Beauty Council. And we're talking about some of our sustainability goals also with Ulta, right? Like, that's an example of being big in a different way. It's influencing behind the scenes. So we have a lot going on the industry leadership side around sustainability. We are rolling out more stores, probably not in 21, probably into 22, but we are in 10 markets now, and have a long list of consumers raising their hands, asking us to come to more stores. And then obviously all of us switched our buying habits into digital. So we see continued huge growth in that channel. And what is nice about digital is allowing us to connect on a bigger way than we were able to even a year ago. We're running virtual seminars. So yesterday we launched, clean hair care, and it sold out immediately. We do master classes with facials. We just did one with Indy Lee, who is a great clean beauty entrepreneur, sold out immediately. So we can do classes 100, 200 people at a time now, whereas we will return, and we used to do maybe 20 people at a time.
Right.
So this idea of impact. And people, like, if you had told me a year ago that, random people are going to sign up on Zoom Teams and wash their faces together across the country and ask questions by chat, and that they're going to love that and pay for that, I'd be like, I don't think so.
Out of your mind.
Yeah. And now they were selling out. So we're like, all right, so there's this, we can reach a lot more people because people have also learned different ways of doing things. So that's pretty exciting. We have a bunch of stuff cooked up under our sleeves. We launched private label this year. Our private label brand is called Exa, and it's like the Fenty of the clean beauty world. So what we were realizing in our stores, and we started this probably 2 years ago, was that we didn't have enough shades to represent the consumers coming through the door. So we launched with 43 shades, and the brands that we had in our store were usually around 20 shades. So now we're really blowing that out to improve diversity and accessibility in our own stores. So like private labels exploding, growth is exploding, digital is, ways of connecting with people. So it's mostly just keeping everyone prioritized. And I know that sounds so managerial and weird, but our cup runneth over with opportunities. And so to avoid burnout and being too stretched, we have to be really strategic about which of those we really lean into over the next 3 to 5 years. So I don't know, it's exciting and some days a little exhausting.
Well, I can see why it'd be hard to prioritize. As you were talking, every single one, I'm like, "Ooh, that's cool. Oh, I want to do," And
I just did an interview. We just hired some new people. We're doing a bunch of interviews, and everyone's like, "Well, why haven't you rolled out internationally?" I'm like, "Because I sleep at night. Like, because I
barely.
Like, where would we have time to roll out internationally?" But yeah, there are it's a movement that is not only about Credo, it's much bigger than us. So we're the macro trend of the world in many areas. We're talking about beauty right now, but in many areas is going this way. And so, we want to keep driving that as best we can.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Dawn, this I always knew, nothing, no curveball was curvy enough for you, but man, it's incredible what you've been through and what you've accomplished. And this was a great talk.
Shelley, such a treat. Such a treat to be with you. Listeners, we live down the block from each other.
We do. And Dawn's the one who told me the rumor about our neighbor, although I don't know if anybody's seen her. We'll give you all a hint who you're watching. Yes. I'm staying at the inauguration with a big bird.
There has been a sighting in the neighborhood.
Oh, there has? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to take us home here. For all of you who tuned in, I know you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for your time. Always really appreciate your comments and your feedback. I think, the deeper we get with thought leaders and just iconic leaders like Dawn, the better we get as an industry. So thanks for tuning in to Taking Stock Live. Come back for more. We've got more great speakers coming. And Dawn, again, just a huge thank you to you.
Thanks for having me, Shelley.
Yeah. Hey!